Welcome to We Should Run the AFL. I'm Wally.
And I'm Jez, and on next week's episode, we are very excited. We have a special guest coming on next week. We don't know who it is, so
No idea.
it could be you, it could be Wally's mum. We don't know,
She
but
loves
we're
her footy.
excited. Exactly, but we will find someone, and it'll be someone quality, and it'll be worth listening into. So don't miss next week's episode. Miss this one, but don't miss next week's. But then if you're listening now, you obviously won't be missing it. So I'll stop there and I'll pass it over to Wally because I am talking absolute rubbish.
When you say it's going to be quality, do you mean the same quality as we're doing right now? Or?
Well, it can only get better, really, can't it?
Right? The only way is up. Anyway,
Exactly.
it will be great. We've got a few people in mind, so we'll get someone on. But today we're gonna get straight into it. We're actually going to be talking about the fixture and how the AFL season's fixtured and what we think of it, ways we think we can make it maybe a bit more even, some theories we have, and maybe we did wild predictions last week, maybe a few wild thoughts on how the fixture could be evened up as well.
Yes, and there might also be some controversial ideas thrown out
What?
there. So unlike us to have anything controversial, but
Right?
yes, you know.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. That's going to be good.
yes, we sort of established off camera that there's about, I think it's 23 games each club plays, 17 the host team once, and then you play 6 other teams twice.
Yep. So there's 25 rounds with a couple of buys for each team.
Yep, and then in that we have opening round and gather round as well. So any thoughts on what we can do to make the fixture more level or more even?
Well, I mean, there's a few things. And the funny thing is that everything we hear is always about, from the AFL is making it, we want to have it even and all that sort of stuff as well. So you get, teams that finished in the bottom six the year before tend to have an easier draw where they play other teams more that finish down towards the bottom. And vice versa, the team that wins the flag should have the hardest draw theoretically in that sort of theory, which doesn't always happen. But again, they talk about fairness, but really it all comes down to TV and how many rounds you're going to get on TV, because they could just play each other once and it'd be fantastic. then we don't have the home and away. Obviously, that makes it a little bit tricky. But if everyone plays sort of the same number of home games, same number of away, and obviously it's going to be different for interstate, but that's in a way as close to the fairest as you're going to get. But again, TV, like even with gather round, which is great, but I didn't really understand why they had to add in another round because they played gather round. And then I found out, and I don't know if this is correct, but what I got told, it's because each team has to play a certain number of home games, and that doesn't count as a home game for some teams. And so, but again, also another round of footy for TV is another few $1 million.
Exactly, and it's really interesting what you raised there, and we're focusing on the fixture. There's so many other parts to it that we can talk about as well, not just in terms of which teams play which teams twice and so forth, but also days between games, the travel component, especially for the teams outside of Victoria, and specifically the two WA teams. They've obviously got to travel further than everybody else, and the impact that has on them during the season and on their careers longer term as well. So there's a few factors there, obviously. Then you've got, day games, night games, whether, one team's playing, at the MCG in the wet, and another team's playing at Marvel in the dry, under the closed roof, these sorts of things. There's a lot of factors that we could talk about and that we may still, but there's a lot of things to consider with trying to make this a more level playing field.
Exactly. And it's easy to sort of say, oh, just do this. But again, you're right. So many things come into it. But I guess things you can't predict, the MCG could be beautiful on a lot of days when you play and all that sort of stuff. Like in the background behind you, fantastic day. So, but yeah, it's interesting because even in terms of the fixture, when they say, okay, you finished top six, so your repeat games are going to be harder next year against teams that finished higher on the ladder the previous season, and vice versa. The lower teams, your 6 rematches are going to be against teams that finish lower, so it's going to theoretically a little bit easier. But even with that, each year there's usually one or two teams that drop out of the 8, and so it seems like a harder draw, but it becomes easier. And one or two teams that are just like Hawthorn last year or Collingwood the couple of years before that, where they finished 14th or 15th the year before and just flew up the ladder. And there's almost always at least one team that does that each year. So some of that easy draw becomes a bit harder. So here's an out there one for you. And again, I don't know if they'll be able to do this, because the other thing is also, before I get onto that, is you look at someone like Collingwood or even an Essendon, and pretty much if they always say it's about, again, the evenness, if so, why does Collingwood always, as in always, play Essendon and Carlton, regardless of where they finish on the ladder? That's always playing them twice. And again, which works well some years and works not so well other years, depending how they're going. But anyway, regardless of that, then how about if you wait till like round 18, right? So there's 6 games left. So you're ready for the double ups. You wait till round 18. Everyone's, played each other once by that time. And then you look at the ladder. And that's when you decide the next 6 games, who plays who.
Interesting.
Would that be possible?
Well, I don't see why it wouldn't. I mean, they've already got a bit of a floating fixture with the last round in particular. So it's certainly an option. But it's still, I mean, the problem still exists though, doesn't it? In terms of, yes, every team has played each other team once, but, some teams have played, certain teams at home and other teams away, sort of thing. And, especially with the travel component or the interstate component, it's, for some teams, you'll be lucky, you might get, a team that's better in Melbourne. You might get to play them at your home, so away for them, which makes it easier for you. And you might get, an easier team at home or away or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like it doesn't sort of, like it's not perfect. It's certainly an improvement, but it still doesn't resolve it fully, which, I'd love to sort of wake up one preseason and find that they've rehauled the whole thing, and I've got beeps going off here. That they've done a whole rehaul of the whole thing and revamped it, and now they've got a way to make it, so everybody plays each other twice somehow, but it's not extending out to 38 weeks or whatever it is, like in the Premier League, and the players aren't exhausted, and they've got to have 60 players on the list because everybody's getting injured and tired and everything. So don't know. I think that's certainly an option, but it still doesn't quite resolve it enough, I don't think.
That's right. Because if you played everybody twice, then suddenly, you play like they used to back in the day when there was 11 teams. Play, everyone home once and away once, and so it does kind of even that out, which is great. But I think you're right. Like I'm busting for the season to start. Like I'm hanging. The gap in between kills me. But at the same time, I just 30. Even if it was like 30 weeks, even now the season feels long to me, and I love footy. But even now it feels long. So I think if it's even any more, it's going to kill you. So realistically, I mean, they're bringing in another team, which is going to sort of disqualify this whole argument. Realistically, to play each other twice, it would maybe need to come down to like 15 teams or something like that. And so there's, 14 home, 14 away that you're going to play. So it's still 28 weeks, but it's only a few weeks longer than it is now. So that wouldn't be terrible. But then how do you get it to 15? Is it mergers? Is it just getting rid of teams altogether? Who knows?
Yeah, well, that sadly is the only way to do it, really, isn't it? Unless you try and bring in, sort of more of an American system with conferences and divisions and these sorts of things, which I have to be honest, I'm not opposed to. I actually don't mind that. It doesn't necessarily level it out, and that you're not playing everybody twice, but it does level it out to a certain extent in other ways.
So how does the conferencing? I watch the NFL, but I don't know how the conferencing works. How they select who's in which conference? Is it just location, or is there something else to it?
It's I believe it's predominantly location, because it's usually like in the basketball it's the West Conference and the East Conference.
Yep.
And they've got divisions within that as well. I don't know if the divisions really play any part in who makes it into the playoffs in the NBA, but okay. I think it plays a role in terms of who plays who a certain amount of times. So I think you've got like 5 teams in your division. I think you play each of those teams the maximum number of times you can play another team. which I think is actually 5,
Okay.
4 or 5. Whereas teams from another division or from another conference, you might only play them 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
So it impacts the fixturing, but not necessarily the playoffs. Whereas the NFL, I haven't looked into it closely, but just from watching it as a an Aussie fan who doesn't know that much about it, it's more like in the playoffs. Well, sorry, they have their divisions, and I think it's the top team in the division gets into the playoffs, and then you have
Okay.
like wild cards where like a second, the second best in the sort of second best team out of all the divisions in their conference can also make it in. So you get, I think there might be 6 divisions in each conference, and they'll have 8
Yeah.
teams make it. And then you have each conference, they sort of have their own playoff system until the winner of each conference plays each other, which they
Okay.
do in the NBA as well,
Yep.
sort of thing. So they have it in that sense. So that's how I can sort of see that sort of thing working
Yep.
in some capacity. I don't quite know how you'd split the teams up, to be honest. Especially obviously we're both biased Collingwood supporters, but the fact of the matter is that everybody wants to play against Collingwood for financial reasons, for that exposure and everything. So in this scenario, not everyone's going to get to play Collingwood or as often as they would like, and especially if you have the same. Well, this is the other way you could think of it. You could have the same conference and the same division year on year, or maybe you could have, again, like a floating one. You change it based on ladder positions, which in a sense is what they do now with the, who plays which teams twice. It's kind of divided along that line anyway. So, yeah, I don't know if that works in any way, but yeah, do you have any thoughts on what you've just heard?
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting one. I reckon the way it could possibly, I guess at the moment you could have 3 divisions of 6, or Tassie comes in. Let's say Northern Territory comes in. You got 20. You could have 4 divisions of 5, so you could somehow work it around that.
Yep.
But yeah, in terms of actually who plays who, I'd need to look into it a little bit more because I have no idea how that would work. And the thing is, there's always going to be people who go, "Oh, that's so unfair for us because of whatever reason," and it might be, but yeah, look, and in reality, as you say, the fairest possible way is everyone to play each other twice, once home, once away. But let's assume for now that's not going to be possible because it's just too many teams and too long.
Yep.
But what if you did have even 2 divisions of 10? They all play each other, like in each division. So let's say there's an East and a West, for example. They all
Yep.
play each other in that division twice, once home, once away. So there's 18 games. And then I don't know what you do in the next 5, but you could do something to do with the other division maybe as well. Like you play against teams in the other division once, a few teams, and then that could be work. I don't know how they'd work that out, but that's, or maybe you just don't. Maybe just do the 9 games. To have 20 teams. You have 9 games home, 9 games away, 18 games. Have a break, then get into finals. I know it's
Yep.
6 rounds less, which again not going to happen because of the TV rights and stuff. But maybe that's a way to do it if there's conferences.
So I don't mind that idea. And so what would happen then with finals? Like,
Yep.
would you have like they do with in the States where you've got the 2 conferences have their finals, and then the winner of each one plays off in the grand final?
Yeah, I reckon that sounds good. Well, you could somehow cross it over as well. Like maybe, maybe the finals. No, it's not going to work. I was going to say the finals are against the teams from the other conference, but then you meet in the middle after that, and I don't know. But yeah, maybe you just have finals within your own conference, and there's just a top 4 in each conference or something.
Now, that was going to be my next question. How many teams make the final? So yeah, so top 4. I personally always loved the final 5. I always the top 5. I always thought that was the fairest system, where the team that finished on top got a week's break, and then the other teams had to fight for it from there.
Yep.
So I know, I mean, that's half the teams making it. But from if you're going to lose some home and away games, but you're going to fill it up with potentially some additional finals or
Yeah.
something, that might sort of satisfy, the I don't know, the networks or something. I don't know.
Absolutely, because it could potentially double. I don't know if it double the finals. I need to do the math, but it could increase the finals. You're right, and so yeah, that's an interesting one, isn't it? And so
Yeah.
Yeah, that could actually be pretty good. Top five. I like top five too. I find it interesting now where they talk about because we have a top eight now, and some people are saying there should be a wild card round for someone
Yeah,
as well. And I'm just like, mate, if you can't get in the top eight, and I know Collingwood came ninth last year and was flying at the end of the season, but it's like if you can't get in the top eight, you missed out. Like I just
yeah,
think too bad. If you can't win more than half your games to get in the top
yeah.
eight, then or whatever it ends up being, it's around 50, just over 50% of your games, then you know, and I would think it would be very, very rare. And I know they have the wild cards in the NFL and stuff, but my guess is would be pretty rare that a team from the wild card actually gets to the Super Bowl or gets even close to it.
Yeah, well, they had in the NBA a couple of seasons ago. One of the wildcard teams made it to the playoffs.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so I mean, they'd only been around for 2 or 3 seasons or something now, so not very long. But yeah, it did happen. But still, they didn't win. I think it's highly unlikely. And I agree. If you can't make the top eight, then bad
Top
luck. I
eight.
mean, so what? You're going to add in another two teams, and then in 10 years'
Oh,
time, we go, hey, let's add in another two. Make it,
right.
get more games. It's just a bit
But there's a
much.
way. There's a way we can fix the fixture. Just have finals from day one. Like they're going to keep adding teams in. Just go round one elimination final. You're
Yeah.
out north. Get out.
Or each team they're gonna do like a best of three between every pair of teams until there's a winner, and then they keep going.
Yeah, it's like rock, paper, scissors. Best of three
Exactly.
for everyone. Oh, that's great. And what they could do, so this is something as well, like, because I mean, one way to make less teams would be to merge them. And I think I touched on this last week, but if maybe just in our normal chats during the week, but if you
Yeah.
merge teams, like, and I sort of look at it and go, oh, and I mean, you look at what Brisbane and Fitzroy did, but if you look at like, oh man, if I'm Collingwood and I don't think Collingwood would be one to merge. Let's say Collingwood merged with North. I'm like, man, North's got some guns. Let's bring them in. That'd be awesome. But maybe you could do, right? Let's say you have that. So we play this game in Impro where you do rock, paper, scissors. So I would like, so there's 20 of us. There's 10 games of rock, paper, scissors, right? So I play against you. Let's say you win. I'm then your cheer squad. So you
Yeah,
play
I've played
against
that
the winner of
before.
another pet, right? And so you
Yeah.
go, and by the end of it, there's half the people cheering one person, half the people cheering the other. Imagine, right? And again, never going to happen, but it'd be awesome. Imagine, like, let's say Collingwood plays Hawthorn in a best of three in the opening round of finals, right? They're best of three finals. Collingwood wins, right? I mean, I'm just assuming it's going to happen, even though they got thrashed by Hawthorn last year. But let's say Collingwood wins the best of three. Then those two teams merge to play the next team. Collingwood gets to choose five, not merge so much, it's still Collingwood, but they get to choose four players from Hawthorn they can take into the next final. And all the other teams get to do the same from the team they beat. So by the end, you've got just two super teams just playing against each other. Very wicked.
I would love to see that. Like just one season even. Just
Oh,
just for fun. Just go, we're gonna do a bit of an outlier this season. We're just gonna
yeah.
do Wally's idea. I love it. I think it's a great idea. It's so funny.
It
It's
is
so
so
much
cool, and
fun.
you wouldn't have to use them all. They just become, and you don't lose players off the list potentially, but obviously, if you're picking four gun players from another team, then your bottom four and your 40 odd players
Yeah.
is possibly not going to game. But you still get your VFL and stuff playing as well. But yeah, you could just get, and you may go, we'll pick those four, but we don't want to get rid of four. We want to, we need a couple of gun defenders right now, so we'll take a couple of defenders, we'll put you in, and then your players could still get back in and stuff, but you just get to use
Yeah.
them. And then maybe you could like, I love the idea of it just building to that, but maybe it's just each round of finals. So Collingwood beats Hawthorn, we get four of their players for that next round of finals, that next best of three. And then Collingwood wins again against, say, Richmond. The Hawthorn players are now done. They're back playing what they do the rest of the year. But then we get to choose four Richmond players to come in. And so we just keep, from the team you beat, you just get to choose four players from that team all the way through. Maybe that could be the finals, like doing it like that. But then the teams that lose have like a secondary little thing going as well. So there's it's not the team that wins out of that, they just all play each other or something, and the one that wins that wins something, but it's not the premiership type thing. Maybe you could do that. Oh, this has got legs, Jez.
So
Got
it's
big
kind of
strong legs.
like the World Cup where they play off for third sort of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Ah,
I like it. I think I like it more the idea of like using your examples. Collingwood beats Hawthorn, we get some of their players. We then beat Richmond, but I wouldn't get rid of the Hawthorn ones. I'd add the Richmond ones in. I like that. I like
That was
that
my
first idea
initial
better.
thought. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that one better. But I think 4 might be too many. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah,
it's too
maybe
many
just a couple.
players. But yeah, either way. And so you get all the supporters there, and
Yeah.
they need a bigger stadium. We need to double the
Totally,
capacity. Because you're going to
totally
have all the
would.
Richmond, Hawthorn, Collingwood supporters in that example, all rooting for the same team.
Which is like that cheer squad for the rock paper scissors thing.
Yeah,
Like suddenly, yeah,
exactly.
you go because yeah, like I mean, you might get a like North Melbourne Sheasel starts playing for Collingwood because they pick him and put him in the team. Like in North, like if Collingwood lost to Nick Dacos and the guy who were playing somewhere else, I'd 100% watch that game. Like I'd be all
Yeah,
over it to
yeah,
see him go.
exactly. So yeah, I like it. I think yeah, I think we should put it to our 2 viewers, our 2 listeners, and see what they think as well on that idea. It's interesting. I like it. How long have
Speaking
you
of, I
been
don't know.
thinking? I feel like this is something you've thought about in the past, and you're pretending that you just came up with it on the spot, but it's been percolating for a while.
I wish it had because I would have more details if it had. But no, it literally just popped into my head from something you said. No, it literally just came about because when we were saying like they're going to keep getting more teams in the finals, and then it's like, oh, imagine just playoffs all the way through, just a year of playoffs. Like it'd be awesome, and every week's cutthroat as well.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
it makes it so much more interesting. Every week would be cutthroat.
And if it's best of 3 as well, each time you're playing a team, the incentive to win the first 2
Mhm,
obviously is there, so you get
mhm.
a break before you play the next one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because some teams are going 2-1, 2-1, 2-1. Someone else has gone 2-0, 2-0, 2-0 all the way through. They played potentially 5 less games by the time they play each other.
Yeah.
And they get a week off to get the players they've chosen from the other club to train with them and working with the game plan. They get an extra week for that as well.
Oh, this has got to come in. I love
This is
it.
gold.
This just solves every problem with the fixturing.
We need our special guest to be Andrew Dillon.
We do. Oh, this is great. This is gold.
It's gold.
I didn't realize he had this in you. I'm very impressed.
I don't think anyone in France had it in me, but least of all me.
Oh, that's great of
Oh, I
you.
love
I
it. All
love
right,
it.
and then I reckon we should stop right there with the fixturing and we move to our love hate because I reckon
Yeah,
we're on top. I mean, basically that's why we should run the AFL. Where we could finish it right there. What we are going to do? Oh, you know what we haven't done for a little while. How about like keep or remove as well?
yeah, I know. We should do that.
We can do a quick
Can you
one
think
on
of
that.
something
Okay.
off the
How
top of
about
your head for right now?
yep, top of my head. How about do we keep Anzac Day as a standalone for Collingwood Essendon as part of the fixture? Although there might be a night game there now, that night now, or the day before. I don't know.
Well, hey, yeah, they do. They have a few of them. They have a couple Anzac Day Eve games and things like that. They even have other ones after our one, don't they?
I feel like there's a night game up to Collingwood Essendon, yeah,
Yeah.
but do you reckon we go back, keep it as just the standalone?
Well, I think we could just before I answer that, I think we could extend it to some of the other ones. Like there's the was it the King's birthday, not the Queen, the King's
Yep.
birthday game. There's the what's the Richmond Essendon one called? The Indigenous round
Something
one.
at the G. Yeah. Something at the
Yeah,
G. Dreamtime.
Dream Time of the G.
Yep.
There's a whole lot of them really.
I
That
love them. I
yeah, I
reckon
love
keep
them
them for
too.
me.
Yeah, but is it?
Yep.
But okay, but is it? Do we want to make it like keep, change, remove? So
Mm,
for example, like with
point.
Dreamtime, is it change? Or with any of them, I suppose, is it change where it might be let's open up to other teams, or people always call up every Anzac Day and say it shouldn't always be Collingwood Essendon, it should rotate it. I
Yeah.
personally, I'm 100% biased, and I was at the very first one they had, and I've always felt like Collingwood Essendon started it, they deserve to maintain it, but I'm 100% biased on it, and I'm sure if I was one of the other supporters from another club, I'd be saying with 100%, I think they need to change it and let my team have a turn as well. But so for me, being biased, I would say keep it as it is.
Yep.
But then Dreamtime, I'd love Collingwood to have a turn of that. So, I'm being 100% biased here. Keep Anzac with
Totally double
Collingwood
standards here.
and change the
Yeah.
other
Look,
ones that Collingwood are going to go.
That's it. Look, I'm happy to keep it as it is personally. I think Dreamtime also. I think that's just on usually a Saturday night. There's been other games that day and stuff, so it's not the only game that day, which I think is a slightly different one. But I'm happy
Yeah,
for there to be
true.
other games on that day as well. But I think rotating the Anzac Day main sort of day game between, yes, you could rotate it, but I think it loses a lot if you have teams with much lower supporter bases and you get 40,000 people at the MCG for it. Like, I reckon that suddenly loses a lot of what it's about. Like, you want to be getting near 100,000. You want to be getting 80 to 90 every time that Anzac Day's on. And so I think that can be affected if you have teams with lower supporter bases potentially. Maybe not. Maybe it's the event. People turn up anyway. So yeah, I'm happy to keep that. Do you have a keep or remove off the top of your head for the fixture, sort of fixture wise? And if you don't, we'll
Yes,
go
I
to
do.
yes.
Although it's probably we were going to talk about it in our love hate, so maybe I should leave it for that.
So
But
no, go for it. Let's do it.
go for that. Opening round, I'd like to remove it.
Yeah, I don't really get it, to be honest.
I
Like
don't get it either.
I get that it's sort of getting the teams up in the northern states and things like that to play, but we're going to play there anyway, I guess. And again, as I know, Mason Cox copped a bit last year when he said, we could play the Giants in front of 70,000 in Melbourne or in front of 20,000 in the dog track.
Yeah.
So I think it does lose a little bit. I think opening round, you want it to be this massive, big event, and you want record crowds and stuff at the start of the year. And I think if they're going to do it, you want to do it like you want a better stat. You want to do it at the ground at least. If Collingwood plays the Giants, you want to be getting 50,000 somewhere wherever you're going to play 50, 60,000. So I think keep it, but I think it can be tweaked to be better.
Yeah, well, I also think it's probably unfair in many ways as well to the teams that don't get a second bye, really. I mean, their first bye is opening round if they're not playing there. So they don't get that rest. So I don't think that's fair to those teams either. So coming back to that fixturing. So I don't get it. And I also don't get why they don't just call it round one. And, just add another number at the end. It makes no sense to me. So, I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah, but you're right, though. In terms of the fairness and the equality, again, if everyone just plays round one on the same weekend, that straight away brings fairness into it, I think, as well. So now I've changed, so let's remove it. I'm out. Done.
Yeah. All right. Cool. And so the love it, hate it, we had that for that as well. But we also have the gather round.
Yeah, I actually love gather round. I reckon it's great. And again, every team plays there. It's a weekend celebrating footy in Adelaide, which is pretty. They're pretty pro footy and love footy over there. So yeah, I reckon it's great. And again, I think the crowds are generally pretty good. Like we tried to go last year, a couple of friends and I, and it was sold out. Games were sold out ages before. Yeah. I don't know what numbers they get at the crowds. So again, some of them might be a little bit lower, but the one I think Adelaide Oval holds a heap now. And so yeah, I love it. I think it's great. I think it's really cool. I don't know why they had to add an extra round in again, but I think maybe that is just because of home and away games. But in terms of the actual concept of it, I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I love it. So I think the reason is probably like, you have to play a certain number of games at MCG and Marvel, like,
I was thinking, yeah.
For like Collingwood, we have to play a certain number at Marvel, which is why we seem to get some home games there against like the Bulldogs and that for some bizarre reason. I don't know why it wouldn't be interstate teams, but anyway, that's a whole separate Collingwood focused discussion. But yeah,
we'll have that on the phone after.
Yeah. No, but look, I love gather round. I think it'd be good if they could rotate it, and maybe I think that's their plan, but rotate it to other states. I don't think it necessarily has to be in Victoria. I think it'd be great in Victoria, but I mean, it's kind of what we have every weekend almost anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
But I think it'd be fair to have it in WA and Queensland and New South Wales as well. And I don't see why they couldn't have it like in, maybe they haven't got the grounds for it and then the crowds and that, but if they could have it like in Northern Territory or Tassie or something, I think that would be great as well. Especially with Tassie coming in, it might actually be a really great way of doing it, really promoted there.
That's right. It's a good idea. And interesting that you said that rotation, because I was thinking as you're chatting, but yeah, what they probably could do one in WA if they have the grounds, but also that's kind of what round zero is. So again, why not have everyone play round zero, and that's like a gather round in Sydney/Brisbane if they need different grounds. And so yeah, have everyone play and make it another gather round, then do gather round in that. You could almost do it in every state during the year. Like it doesn't even have, I mean, I know there's the needing to play at MCG and stuff like that. But you could rotate it, or you could sort of bring it in a bit during the year as well, and just work out deals with the grounds and just say, you get a portion of the cut from playing at Optus Stadium or something like that, from missing out on one game at the MCG.
I think I like it. I think the only problem is, and I'm just conscious of time, we probably need to wrap it up in a sec, but I think the only problem is you're kind of diluting it in a sense, that as a product, if you're going to have it, 4, 5, 6 times in one season. So, I mean, I do like it, but I think having gather round in opening round, or some version of that in the northern states would be really good. It's a great idea, but it's got to tweak it a bit, maybe slightly different.
I think it's a good point. And so maybe that and Adelaide, which is kind of what they got now anyway. And then, the year after, it could be WA and somewhere else as well. So, could bring that. Yeah, it's a good idea. All right, you're right. We better stop, because we are recording this pretty late at night as well, and it's past our bedtime, Jez. We need some beauty sleep.
Oh, I need a lot of that. But
me too.
I think we have proven tonight why we should run the AFL.
We're going to time that right one day.
I think we need to practice it. We really do.
All right, we're out.